How about if I turn the microphone on and we can all get started? So let's see, first things up is a roll call. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Myjack?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Thompson?
Here.
Member Burdette?
Here.
Member Tucker?
Here.
Member Miller?
Here.
Member Delgado?
Here.
Member Nico?
Here.
Alternate Member Young? Alternate Member Rosa?
Well, looks like everybody is here. Good deal. All right, so we have a quorum. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty then. Next up is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I did have two minor corrections that I saw that actually I'm shocked that I even noticed them. But on page 3 and again on page 5, there's reference to the wetlands property on 405 that we looked at. It's listed in the minutes as 405 Mars with an S, and it's just 405 Mar, M-A-R.
MAR.
And it was on page 3 and 5.
All righty. Any other recommendations? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. On to petitions and requests from the public present. Anybody have a petition? Stan? Nobody? Oh, boy. Okay, well, then, old business and new business, huh? Well, I think we should do again what we did before. I think we should put the wetlands and rearrange our agenda, right? So that we get this taken care of first. And if we have time later, then we can talk some more about the wetlands. But let's,
Yeah, I would move that we rearrange the agenda to cover new business before old business.
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Good. On to new business. Urban Forest Management Draft Plan. Who's like to take over?
So we are going to present, we have our consultant here, Liz, who's going to present to you our draft urban forest plan. If you recall, EOC and Environmental Group was selected to conduct an urban forest management plan. Many of you attended the workshop that we had several months ago, provided input. There were surveys that were conducted, and this is the result of that. This is only a draft. This is just for input only. The next step after this is potentially bring it back to you with some changes or refinements at your next meeting, which is, I believe, May 13th. And then the intent or the hope is to be able to bring this as a presentation to our city council at their meeting in June 9th. With that, I'll turn it over to Liz and she'll go through her presentation.
Sure. Do you want me to stay right here for the presentation, or do you want me to get up at the?
Whatever's convenient.
Okay, I can stay here. I don't know.
Need to turn the microphone on.
Okay, there we go. I usually can talk loud enough without the mic too. But anyways, thank you guys for granting me a slot in the agenda. I'm very happy to be here. And to echo what Brad said, this is very much a working draft. We did not hand you a finished plan saying, hey, here, we're ready to go. We are truly looking for feedback. There's a reason that we don't have the executive summary, because we want to have everything finalized to be able to do that at the end. So very much looking for feedback today. So appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to do so. All right, so let me make sure I can read one. Okay, so we're gonna go over tonight. I'll be 15, 20 minutes maybe. So going over what we got out of the community engagement, how that actually translated into the plan itself. What the draft plan features, so the goals, objectives, and some of the implementation, the monitoring and accountability part, and then of course time for questions. And I did want to, in case you guys couldn't see the giant poster board in the room, if before everybody leaves, they can take a chance to grab a sticker, and on the left, it is what we heard, so a few different facts from the community survey findings. If you can put a sticker on what surprised you the most, I know which one surprised me. And then on the other side, it's how that actually translated into the plan. So on that one, if you could put a sticker by something that really gets your vote as to being the most important. And then we also have comment cards. So if you wanted to reinforce something we missed, something else on your mind that just isn't there, please add it to just an index card, and we will review them for feedback before getting another version of this draft plan together. And I'll plug that at the end too. So, all right, so here's a brief overview of the community engagement. So 92% of our respondents on the survey said trees were either extremely or very important. I've done quite a few of these surveys. That is a very high number. We're usually in the 70s or 80s. Now, right when we did the community survey, we had a lower response rate than we had anticipated, so I think it's important to draw attention to that. And that was right when you guys had the historic flooding. So certainly a reason that filling out an online survey was not top of everybody's priority. So City had a great ideas to put a very small version of that survey up on Flashboat. We were able to get, almost 250 responses to that. So we were able to kind of reinforce some of those findings, and also a couple of small areas where they diverged, nothing crazy though. So the majority of people wanted more trees, right? In Flashvote, 40% wanted a lot more trees. Majority supported the city funding trees, tree care and planting. And then the last one, we did not have a high recognition rate. People didn't really know how to report concerns with trees. So that's a major feature in some of our engagement and outreach and education. All right, so what we heard from the survey. Now, you see the word perception up there. So we gave some renderings and then asked people questions. And one of them was, do you think the canopy is increased, decreased, stayed the same, or I don't know? And you can see almost half of the people thought canopy is decreased in their neighborhood since they moved there. And then you can see the other big portion was about the same. Very few said their canopy is increased over time. That being said, when we had the pictures showing different canopy cover levels, your survey respondents overwhelmingly chose the densest tree canopy that exists, which kind of blew my mind. That's not something we see often. Typically, you see it land more in the middle, like people want some trees, but not to live in a forest. Usually it's like me that wants to live in the forest. So I thought that was pretty impressive. When it all came down to it, the top priorities, I don't think any of these are a surprise. Stormwater runoff, shade and heat, and then wildlife and pollinator. And wildlife and pollinator seems to make it in the top for a lot of cities, so you're right there with them. And then obviously the stormwater and shade and heat are a very local thing for you guys. You don't see that featuring as much in a Minnesota survey, so. All right, so here is the vision. I will not go through and read it, but just know that we had the workshop a lot of you partook in. We had 3 vision statements developed. In my mind, the 3 were very similar, and when they were put to vote on, you might have to correct me on this, I want to say it was on social media of some sort, but it went to an online vote, so the whole community could choose their favorite, and they were very close. I think all 3 got 30% or above. The winner had like 37%. So they were all in line with what the community liked, which I think is important. All right, so how we translated this, we took what we heard, not just from the community survey, but in Flashvote, but we also did a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats assessment with the city staff that echoed a lot of things we saw in the community survey. And it translated into these 6 goals that we're gonna go over briefly. All right. Oh, that's really hard to read from here. I'm sorry. Okay. So the first goal, basically in the survey, in the SWOT, we realized that no single person on the Titusville staff is responsible for managing public trees, that Maintenance is completely reactive and complaint-based. There's really no staffing or budget or formalized systems on how to run an urban forestry program. And that is unfortunately common, that you guys are not an outlier in that at all. So the first goal is really establishing some basic systems and designating somebody in charge of city trees, at least temporarily, so that we can get to work on the rest of the plan. The second goal is really building that program. So that one, assuming we have goal 1 underway and we have that foundation ready, this starts working towards proactive management. And it's been proven proactive management is more cost effective. So in the long term, even though you have an initial outlay, you will save money in the long term. For example, if somebody calls you and complains about a tree and you have to go and remove that one tree, it might be $1,000. If you're doing annual work, that one tree might be $300 to $500 instead, right? The third goal, we came that everybody wanted more trees, more canopy, a lot more trees. So growing the tree canopy, we heard that people were concerned about the loss of tree canopy over the years through development and everything else. So I think that's a pretty foundational goal. Okay, so now we're on to the second half of the goals, which is goal 4, preserve and protect what you guys already have. So making sure we're strengthening protections for public trees, reducing development loss, making sure deferred maintenance is taken care of, and the trust fund is used to offset some of that canopy loss. The fifth goal is about health and benefits, so those top 3 community priorities, so making sure that the program is supporting those 3 priorities. The last goal is making sure that we have that integration with the community, so that stewardship and access, that people can get to their green spaces, they can see trees out of their window, they're able to participate in programs, because those programs provide a lot of value to the city. You guys have a great volunteer base, and that's something I consistently heard is we have all these volunteers ready, but we're just kind of waiting for a little bit of more direction, more help, more formalizing of that structure. All right, so I know this is going to be a topic, the Public Landscape Trust Fund. So we heard that the concerns were the funds were used for general beautification. That's the perception, right? Rather than tree planting, tree canopy growth. So we have a couple of key things that relate to that. One is having an expenditure policy that really prioritizes canopy replacement and urban forestry as a whole. The other one is related to what feeds into that trust fund, which are the mitigation fees, so that we make sure that private tree removal funds are actually able to go back on private property. This is something that a lot of tree mitigation funds struggle with, that it just goes back to public property. And eventually, you can't have a city that just has all street trees and no trees on private property. So setting up some of those programs at the outset is really important. And then we did get quite a few questions on this through the city staff's outreach, so that features a little bit later. I tagged them on at the end of the slides. All right, so our key strategies. So going through each goal, I won't read these one by one, but I did want to put up there, these are some of the prime things that we're going to look at for each goal. These are specifically what you would call actions, so like the doable items somebody has to accomplish. Some cost money, some cost staff time, some cost both, which is part of the implementation. And here is a brief overview of the implementation plan. So the overall urban forest plan covers a 20-year horizon, a planning horizon is what they call it. The actual implementation, so developing an actions, who does what, when, that only covers 5 years, and that's intentional, because doing these day-to-day actions 15, 20 years out is quite frankly like a waste of everybody's time, because things are going to change so much in the next few years as you go through this, that in the general planning world, a lot of, I think even the grant language on this had it working on the Florida Urban Forestry Primer, and this is how they do it, and that's the reason why. But we should also note that at the bottom, the progress report, so that starts in the first year, and that's an annual thing that gets presented to you guys. And it's a brief overview of what happened in the urban forestry world in Titusville in the last year. Some cities, the staff prepare it. Some actually the council prepares it with staff facts. So that's something you guys, if you wanted to, take a bigger role in that, that could certainly happen. But no matter what, it would come before you for review. All right, so a lot of plans do not include this portion, the monitoring and the accountability. You get a plan, you start doing things, and you hope it goes well, right? But what happens when things don't go according to plan, which is, 95% of the time at least, you have to have some strategies to deal with it. So for every objective, basically, we have an adaptive management trigger so that it says, if this is not happening, if the city has not been able to do this on time, what happens? So if we have a net public tree loss, what happens? So city staff goes back, reviews planting plans, and presents updated planting plans to the city manager. So every single thing has a trigger that is associated with that. And then as part of that annual progress report, those are kind of your indicators. So if things are going well, it'll show as on track to you guys. Needs attention is we have some issues, but we're working on it. Not started is we just sheerly have not even begun yet. But I think your all's role in that is very important, that knowing that that plan is or that progress report is publicly presented and publicly available, not just to you, but to every citizen, is an important checkpoint in this. Because speaking from personal experience, as a city arborist, I'd gone through the day-to-day motions. I knew what I was doing, right? I knew I planted this many trees, pruned it, but it was invaluable to see that on a couple of sheets of paper in front of me to really truly measure how good a job in some areas and how other areas needed improvement. So nothing like staring your work in your face. All right, and then last, I did want to reiterate, this is just a draft. So tonight we're looking for honest feedback. So questions, feedback, places we kind of are off the mark a little, we want to know that. We have plenty of time to make changes, make amendments, and you guys are really getting a look at the same time as the city staff. So we've been working throughout with the city staff, but you received the draft pretty much the same time they did, okay? So nothing is set in stone at this point at all. Now, I had a few questions. Lily was able to compile some feedback, and I kind of divided them. It seemed they kind of ran along the same three veins. So one of them was funding. So how do people fund these programs? You can see right there, the majority of programs, 72% across the country, are funded by the general fund, okay? Next, you see other. I could not tell you what in the world that is. Assessment districts, grants, another one, stormwater utility tax. Most cities have about, you see 1.4% of that stormwater utility goes to trees, because trees are an important component of stormwater. And you can see your community already recognized that value. That was their top priority. Permit fees usually factor in there. I'm trying to think what else would apply. Tree memorials, those are usually very popular programs. So there's a lot of little things you can do, but at the end of the day, it generally is the general fund that pushes an urban forestry program. Now, down below, I have a couple of benchmarks, and these are all pulled from a national study of urban forestry programs. So across the country, I think about 500 different communities of different varying population sizes submitted their responses to the survey. So we were able to develop benchmarks based on your population for the most part. So you can see for you guys, the general benchmark for a city your size is spending that 0.63% of the total city budget on urban forestry program. That's salaries, tree pruning, planting, leaf cleanup, everything. So you guys are significantly below that. Per capita forestry budget, same deal there. Your typical city of this population is going to spend almost $14. Yours was just a nudge over $5. And then the primary funding sources, you are right on par with everybody that you are using. I think the one caveat with that is that you're mostly general fund, if not general fund plus grants. So maybe diversifying and looking into other elements and funding mechanisms that might be available to you. Okay. Staffing was the other thing we got some questions on. So you can see right there, typically your person responsible for public trees in a city of your size is a city arborist or a city forester. Right now in Titusville, it's public works director. And that is only typical in small cities where city staff wears a lot of different hats. That is not the norm for cities of your population. We can see, but typically it does land under public works, which I think is good to note. A lot of cities also have it under a Parks and Recreation department, so it could be either one of those. You guys are right in line in the South where the city actually is responsible for public trees. There are a lot of places in the US where the adjacent property owner is responsible. And then you can see we generally have the estimate that there's about the equivalent of one full-time employee managing public trees. And that's pretty far below the benchmark for a city of your size as well. So, and that doesn't mean it's just one dedicated full-time employee. That might be 4 people that each work around a day a week, right? So typically there's a lot more physical labor going into public tree management. And then off to the right, that's just a quick snip of some different job positions that might be in what you would fall under that staff managing public trees. So it might be your city arborist, it might be an urban forestry manager, it might be a foreman, it might be a pruning arborist. So doing a lot of work in-house can save you a lot of money compared to contracting out. Equipment operators, seasonal workers, laborers, office support. So that clerical admin side is also important. And that doesn't mean that has to be what you guys have for job titles by any means. It's just an example of what exists in other municipalities. All right, and so here's what they spend their money on. Tree pruning, tree removal, tree planting. Top 3, always. Then you get into staffing costs, right? Admin, supervision. You get into storms, watering new trees, training, inventory, treating trees to make sure they stay safe. Office, you can see education's in there as well. A couple other random things. Nursery maintenance, you have one. So there's a lot of different facets that go into this urban forest program, but you can see that the top 3 are what you would expect. Planting, pruning, removal. All right. And the last one, I think this is the last slide I have. Let me think. Landscape Trust Fund. So I think there was some feedback on the draft about what would some example language be. And actually the city staff had that same feedback. So in the last couple of days, I pulled together a few suggestions. And of course, all this should be vetted your typical public participation process. But basically adding an exclusion to say it can't be used for ornamental flower planting. It can't be used for general beautification. It has to go specifically to these things, tree planting and establishment. It has to go to, a lot of cities actually have it for acquisition of land as well, or easements. Sometimes they include staffing and equipment, sometimes they don't. But those are just some examples that you can include, and some may work for Titusville and some may not, right? When I was a city arborist, ours was only for tree planting and tree maintenance. It couldn't fund anything else. But it exclusively said that. I knew what it could and could not be used for. And I actually did clarify that with our city attorney when I took over and said, just to be clear, what's maintenance? So making sure that that verbiage is clear about what it can and can't be used for. Yep. And that is the end. And as a reminder, make sure you use the sticker voting and fill out a couple of note cards if you have some further thoughts. But I can take any other questions you guys may have because I didn't get through all of the ones that Lily sent me today, so.
Well, I guess that brings it back to the board. Anybody have any questions now before we open the floor up to public comment?
Should we do public comment first?
We could do public comment first if you like.
Public comment first because we may learn something from.
I hope we do.
Yeah.
Okay, Lily, do you have some cards for us?
Yep, Mary Spar.
All right, Mary, you're up. And thank you for taking the time to drive all the way here.
Oh, great. Let me see, hold on, let me see, make sure it's not okay. Oh, okay, yeah. I have your email. I haven't had time to fully go through it though, so just to warn you.
This is the email she sent.
I'm Mary Spar, I live in Cocoa. I've been wanting this urban forest management plan since Peggy Brusaka announced that it was going to be a long-term goal, and that was in 2019. So I'd like to get it right. And I started looking at the plan, and everything was going just fine until I came on one little section that, woo, it kind of scared me. To tell you the truth, it did really scare me. And that was that the urban forest management plan is going to be modifying the tree ordinance, which was passed on September 28th, 2021. And that tree ordinance required over 2 years of work from you as a TEC, people sitting here in the audience, many, many citizens, many development interests, just all kinds of citizen input. And it's a fact that the tree ordinance is a compromise ordinance. And an adequately considered change to one part could have the effect of upsetting the delicate, and I mean delicate, balance that Community Development Director Peggy Brusaka and multiple stakeholders worked so hard to achieve. So Peggy was able to get the vote to be unanimous in spite of the makeup of the city council at the time. And this was a monumental effort. Now, I don't feel that it's necessary for the urban forest management plan to modify that September 28th, 2021 tree ordinance. In fact, there's a better way of handling it. The urban forest management program could have its own ordinance with higher standards than the compromise tree ordinance. It could do things the best way to do them and not be bound by our compromises. So I'm going to go through some of the provisions that were suggested about ordinance updates. And my suggestion to the consultant is redo this section so that you're thinking of the best ordinance that you would have specifically for urban forest management. And so you have the administrative updates, to include construction protection enforcement with specified penalties in the pre-construction photo, periodic inspection, establishment monitoring period. That could all be part of the tech manual. That could apply not only to the urban forestry program, but also in general to tree planting, because it would be in the tech manual. That could go in your ordinance. And then soil volume minimums by tree class, that could go in your ordinance. And there was a lot of debate about this kind of stuff. In 2021, we have compromise language there. And strengthen soil quality and compaction provisions. This is something you could show us to see how good it could work, because that particular section, which would be appropriate in the tree ordinance and kind of tangentially touches on it, is a compromise section. So then the smaller stock planting standards, you're going to get a little resistance. You do not want resistance from the development community, the landscape architects, et cetera. So if you could just try your smaller stock planting standards for your ordinance, and we've heard some statistics about that. And then the species diversity requirements, maximum 10% single species. May I
How
have?
much more time do you need, Mary?
I'm going to say 2.5 minutes.
Make a motion.
I'd like to give you 5 more minutes.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I
Second.
don't think I'd take all that,
All in
but,
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mary, please continue.
okay. So the species diversity requirements, 10%, this nice, neat 10%, 20%, 30%. I've heard that before. I've definitely heard that before. It is not well suited, in my opinion, to Titusville's natural species diversity. I just don't think it's appropriate here. It looks a little bit arbitrary, and I would suggest that you don't use this for the urban forestry management plan. And then the expanded canopy credit for stormwater tree integration. First of all, I don't think that any urban forestry ordinance should get into canopy area credit. Canopy area is the heart of a requirement for canopy area is the heart of the tree ordinance. That's what we got in exchange for some compromises, which I'm going to go into for a minute. But we tried our best to put in everything we could think of about stormwater tree integration, and that meant the LID language, which is found in 2 places, section 30-31.5D, 6 and 7. So I'm not sure why that would need to be changed, but anyway, you can certainly do it in your ordinance whatever way you want. We do have provisions for that. Now, the fee in lieu rate, that is funding the Landscape Trust Fund. Now, I suggest that you leave what's in the ordinance for the developers that are developing property in the ordinance. I realize that the amounts have not changed, but the way the amounts were used, in order to get the requirement for tree canopy area, which is essential, the development community wanted 2 things. They wanted the fees they had to pay reduced. And there was one person who was super insistent on it. And the other ones felt the same way. So we figured what we want is trees, not money. So we changed the fee that was kind of used as an incentive. If you don't burn your trees you cut down, it was a reduction to $75 per caliper inch. We changed that to be $75. Wait, that's it. We changed that to $75 per caliper inch. That's what you'd have to pay. I think I misspoke. But it was used for $75, per whatever, if you don't burn your trees. So if you want to figure out how to increase the landscape trust fund in some way, just please do not mess with the tree ordinance and the provisions there. And personally, I really think that might not be too smart to depend on that landscape trust fund for all your money. I mean, we've seen it. We have seen it. As it's these gateway planning there, and then there's another gateway planning, and then there's another gateway planning, and all of a sudden we thought we'd have this money, to maybe have Public Works plant some trees. No, it kind of dried up for a while, and now we got a lot of money, but we need to start looking for some alternate sources as well. That's my opinion. Anyway, I have on this paper that about the fee and lieu rate. Let's not stir up a hornet's nest. Okay, I think
We need to hear from some other people. Who married, but
sure,
thank you.
I'm gonna,
Did you leave your notes with the?
I did.
Great.
Yeah.
Got a
Wonderful.
copy.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next card, please.
William Klein.
Welcome, Bill.
William Klein, 3 Indian River Avenue, Titusville. I've been out of the, seeing some of the things that was being done at the beginning, and I just received this report this past week, so I haven't really been able to study it in detail. But what I'd like to say is Titusville has received more than $1 million in grants and studies on excellent projects to plant trees and improve and protect the environment. However, they have all failed. Several because they were too ambitious or because the monies collected for the work was spent on other projects instead of planting and maintaining trees. The present 118-page Titusville Urban Forest Management Plan is too ambitious, too complex, too labor-intensive. They need for tree identification, people need to be able to identify the trees, which I don't think the staff knows at this time, and it's too costly to succeed. Also, the present plan has failed to use the Brevard County UF-IFAS extension document, native keystone species to grow in Brevard County. They have not used that in order to select the best trees for maximum benefit and minimum maintenance requirements for success. The plan allows planting of 50% non-native trees, which minimizes their environmental benefits. The plan looks good in a lot of cases, but it needs a lot of work, and I don't think Titusville is actually ready for the details. Let's see, I'm missing some stuff here. What I suggest is Titusville needs to complete the following steps before they start Titusville's urban forest program. Pass an adequate annual budget item for urban forest program and write rules to prohibit using the money for other programs or projects. Use the tree mitigation fund That was written back in 1996, and it was to collect mitigation funds from the developers to go into a tree mitigation fund, and only for that. This has been taken, I should say stolen, and used for the gateway projects. They have not, Titusville has not kept records of the tree mitigation fund since 1996, even the past few years, when I asked to see how much money has been collected, how much money has been spent, what is your balance? I get no answers. So I have never seen any documentation for the tree mitigation fund. Also, Titusville has this $2 per citizen tree city budget, which is for being an urban forest or a tree city. We don't use the money for planting trees. We use the money for taking care of roads, to remove trees that needed for the roads, to cut trees away from the roads. There are some years we haven't even planted one tree. We have almost 50,000 people, which would be $100,000, but not a dollar has been spent some years to plant a tree. So there's a lot of money in the tree mitigation fund and in the Tree City USA fund that should be able to handle a good project. And I think we need that before we sign papers to have a tree mitigation, I mean, not a tree mitigation, but a tree planting urban forestry program. We really need that program, but we need money to fund it. And we need to have the money available to pay people to do this work. I think we need to hire and train staff to be able to identify trees and train them on how to plant and maintain trees. Like the urban forestry program, which has a lot of good statements on go out and take an analysis of the trees, determine what trees are available, what the percentages are of each type. You know, they state how many percent should be in trees. But I think the people on staff, and I'm not criticizing them because even I couldn't do it, I couldn't go out and look in the forest around Titusville and tell you what every tree is. So how would I follow this program? The people who are doing the program must be trained so they know what the tree is. Whoops, excuse me, I'm getting too, can I have a little more time?
How much time do you need, Bill?
Oh, maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
I'll make a motion to give Bill 3 minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Bill.
I think we should thoroughly review the Titusville's urban forest management plan and make major corrections to start a stepwise program that can be performed by the available staff. You know, because the program that's been presented is a very good program, but since I think it's beyond what we're capable of doing, maybe we need to look at a little something lower to start with and do stepwise to gain this plan. Plus, what I think we need to use is the Brevard County UF IFAS Extension Native Keystone Species to grow in Brevard County. We need to document and select the trees and follow the advice provided for the best soil, light, and water requirements for the location where the trees are to be planted. These trees should have the best survivability and the least required maintenance. So if you use the trees that are adapted to this area, don't use outside trees. Don't use trees that you see a lot of times at some nurseries that aren't for this area. We need Brevard County, not just Florida trees, Brevard County trees that will survive if there's a cold winter like we just had. We just need to start a project in all the areas that will receive the greatest benefit first. So as we start the program, what areas need it the most, and work on those and build from that. We need to reduce the complexity and the many details of the proposed program for the first startup projects to do something that will be manageable. Then add more details as the desired base on success of the completed projects. See, some other projects I've seen that have failed around here is you can take a look at Dre Field. They spent over $1 million on grants to put in around 10,000 plants. There were about 500 trees planted there, and because they only put them in and they spent the money, granted, that was great, but they didn't maintain them. They used lawnmower to cut over the trees, that banged into the trees. Like, I can provide you with total details of the total number of plants planted. That's what I'm missing right now because I thought I had it with me, but I'll give it to you. Only about 50% of the trees planted survived after 2 years. And now I think more have died. Another project that's had problems is in Scobie Park. They have done 3 different shoreline restoration projects. They might have been nice to start with, but in some of them what happened is a lot more people ran in, they planted a lot of mangroves right along the waterfront, which would be good.
Yes.
And they destroyed them. And this has happened twice, and we've got it a third time going again.
Thanks, Bill.
I can give you more details later.
Not a question, but just for your edification, we spent a couple of years working with Kimberly Gibbs from the Florida Native Plant Society to add Brevard vouchered native plants to our planting list, Bill. The Brevard keystone species surprisingly includes a few species not native to Brevard. So they may be keystone, but not necessarily to Brevard, and we considered that when we included that into our planting list. So the trees are there, all the right kind of stuff is there. It's going to be incumbent upon us going forward to figure out which ones and what mix and how we go about doing that. No comment. I just wanted to make that statement. We'll talk later afterwards. We got more people to go. So can I have the next card, please? That's it? No more?
I turned in a card.
I couldn't believe that Kay wouldn't have turned in a card.
I was the first one here, and I turned in my card.
I motion for Kay's card to magically appear.
I found it. I'm sorry.
Step it up to the plate. And give me a bat, too, okay?
Let's have it, Kay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Case St. Ange, Maryland Avenue, Titusville. Here, at long last, we have in hand the draft of the Urban Forest Management Plan provided by the city's selected consultant, EOC, and what an impressive job they've done. Yes, it's a little bit long, and maybe we could work on that because it's very hard for anybody to comprehend 120 pages or whatever it is and to really
125.
take it all in. But yeah. Anyways, the tree team has advocated for a UFMP since the adoption of the 2020 tree protection ordinance and even before. We are eager to see this plan implemented in our community. We appreciate that the tree team will play a role in the UFMP and are ready to collaborate in the ways outlined, including volunteer tree planting, participation in the Adopt a Tree program, and the residential tree assistance program. So thank you very much, Liz. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to be asking you questions because that's what I understood that
Sure.
this meeting was for, to ask you questions. So
As
I have
long as it's all,
specific questions
as long
to
as it's
ask
all
you.
right with the count, I'm good to answer
Okay, it says
questions.
provide the consultant with feedback, comments, and questions about the draft. And so
You are
I
more
have
than welcome.
questions.
Okay.
All right, number one. And I just now changed the order of my questions. On page 72, that's what has this beautiful different colors. Page 72, under number 1, under that little rainbow, this timeline, it says there are 3 actions that must begin immediately as other goals, objectives, and actions depend upon them. Designation of a coordinator, tree inventory, procurement, and the LTF, or Landscape Trust Fund policies, needs to be specify that it will be used for the urban tree forestry program. And Bill, it also says that it will require an accounting every week of that landscape trust fund. So there's a lot of details in here. There's a lot of things that we've been working on that really weren't mentioned in here, but my question to you about this, these three different things, designate an urban forest, coordinated launch public tree inventory procurement, and adopt a landscape trust fund expenditure, you're saying that this must be immediately done before the plan can roll out any further. So how will the consultant ensure the city immediately undertakes these three elements so as the plan can move forward?
Well, I can't force the city to do anything.
Yeah, neither could we.
But what I want to get across is I think a mistake a lot of cities make is they're like, all right, let's put some trees in the ground. And I think to an extent they relied on volunteers, but you need to have, one of the worst things you can do is for the city to start investing money in tree planting without somebody actually in charge. So who's going to water it? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to inspect it? If it has to be removed, where is this time and money coming from? And so somebody in the interim needs to be responsible for getting the ball rolling. And if they can't do that, then we really can't get anything done. That is the truth.
I've heard the mayor say he will not hire somebody for that role, and I've also heard say that Sandarella is not too interested in it either. So now I'm really concerned. So I don't know who's going to say, okay, today this needs to be done. Tomorrow you need to do this, you know.
And somebody, that is the point, somebody has to do it. I'm not going to tell you who it is and who it has to be. And to be fair, if it didn't come across that the public works director, it would not be normal for her to be the person responsible for public trees.
Okay. Well, yeah, she could delegate somebody to do it.
And here's the thing, like a lot of cities have different ways they build up their programs. So it might be a temporary partial reassignment. So they're just saying, oh, city staff doesn't know trees. I've met plenty of city staff that is incredibly well qualified with certifications and training and advanced arborist credentials. So I know they're in here somewhere in this building. Now, do they have time to do it? I can't answer that question. Could they have 2 hours a week to spare to start? That's what we're talking about, is this small reallocation to get the ball rolling. So if somebody can take that on, if it's the city manager that has to assign that to staff, and if, in my opinion, it'd be better that all the people that were involved in trees came together and worked it out themselves as part of that staffing plan. Who's going to be in charge for the next 6 months? I think that is an imperative thing. And like you said, you can't strong arm them. I can't do it. I don't know if anybody here can, right? But yeah, I thought it was important to note that nothing else moves without those pieces in place.
Right, but Appendix K goes through every little detail of what needs to be done, and it says who's going to do it. And if they're not willing to do it, you know, and the city adopts this, and yet the person or the department's not willing to do it, or they don't have the time left, then what happens? I'm at a quandary. I have had jobs where somebody quit and they dumped all their work on me, and I was already doing 40 hours, you know, and how can you do more than the time?
Where does the other 20 come from, right? Yeah, so when you can laugh at this, when I left my last job, it took them over a year to replace me. They replaced me with 1.5 people.
Yeah, often. Yeah.
And it's still probably not enough, it feels. Like you're already running on fumes, so.
Yeah, and if you divvy it out to 20 different people and there's nobody at the head of those 20 different people, it's not going to be very efficient. Anyways, that was my concern.
But you're absolutely right. And for a city the size of Titusville, they need somebody. It can be a part-time consulting arborist. It can be an existing city staff. We've worked with cities where they've promoted from within, essentially. Somebody was doing gardening type stuff, and they said, well, you know what? This person has the capacity. We're willing to train them and, you know, have them be a part-time arborist, part-time landscaper. That's how my last job started. I was part-time city arborist and part-time Parks and Rec. So sometimes those are the compromises that have to be made.
Let's hope human resources can think outside the bubble. I have lots more, but is it okay if I keep going?
I make a motion that we give you 5 more minutes, but you're going to have to go through your questions faster.
Okay,
I'll be faster too, I'm sorry.
okay,
Second.
okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Okay, the plan says that even without a completed inventory, early tree planting events and implementation of the adopted tree program can still move forward. So the tree team could still be planting trees, and we can do some other programs that are listed in here.
Yep, don't want to stop you.
Please don't stop us.
No. But you could use a
Just
little
plant
assistance.
trees. Okay, another big concern of mine is Goal 5, Objective 5.2 on page 68 of 125, which seeks to increase species diversity in public tree plantings where no single species exceeds 10%, genus 20% of family, 30% of the total city-managed public tree inventory. Mary touched on this, but I want to reinforce it. In my opinion, the species diversity requirement needs to be adjusted to accommodate the role of live oak trees in providing tree canopy and supporting wildlife in Titusville. We don't want to limit live oaks to 10% of the city's public tree.
Do we know how many
inventory.
live oaks we have?
No,
What
and I
percent?
tried to look it up online. We do not know, but we don't want to work towards that as a goal. No, that is not our goal. Our city-managed public tree inventory should reflect the species diversification of the remnant natural forest within our community. While species diversification is important in tree plantings, we do not agree with limiting the total city-managed public tree inventory so that no single species, especially southern live oaks, exceeds 10% genus, 20% family to 30%. So I would love to talk to you about it, but I am not supportive of that, and I don't know very many people who are supportive.
I mean, it's an urban forestry standard. If all the city staff and everybody in Titusville doesn't want to encourage diverse tree plantings,
We
that's,
want
yeah.
diverse tree planting, but we don't want the goal of diverse tree planting to have southern live oak trees be 10%.
Well, and if it's just a couple of trees, that's okay. Like, we'll do things for cities and say, these are just general benchmarks. If there are 3 tree species that we would just love to see everywhere,
Yes.
then that's absolutely fine, right? But we don't want to end up with, say, 30% live oaks, 30% something else, and 30% another species, and then just a tiny little remnant of everything else, right? So, but if it's just live oaks, then these are baselines. You can make exceptions to them. They're rules of thumb, so to speak, these industry standards.
Yeah, I don't like the rule of thumb. It does not apply to Titusville. Okay, moving on. Number 3, also under Goal 5, page 68 of 125, Objective 5.3 specifies planting at least 50% native in all new public tree plantings with 25% minimum wildlife value species. I like the wildlife value species, but the Titusville tree team has long followed a policy of planting only native trees. That's all we plant. And so if we're part of the public tree planting, we will only plant.
I say you guys
Native
keep doing what you're doing and
trees.
planting your natives.
As native trees support native insects that sustain native wildlife, the team recommends that the city adopt this same standard and plant only native trees. This approach aligns with the Natural Resources Plan guidance for all native landscaping and new development and the tech manual, which now recommends to landscapers a list of trees and plants which 73% is native or Brevard County. So we've been working towards that all along, and here you're saying only 50%, and it just rubs us raw. I'm raw.
Well, I
with
don't
that
mean to
idea.
rub you raw with it,
Well,
but
you did. And
the
so
point
I'm
is
not happy with
to set a threshold. That is the bottom, not the ceiling. So if the city wants to adopt 100%, they certainly can, but we also want to set them up for success so that if they're only able to get, say, 75%, we can still look at that as a victory because 100% is difficult. If our overarching goal is right tree, right place, that needs to come first. And for, as a nonprofit partner or group, to plant 100% natives is amazing. And so we don't want to discourage that. And if the city wants to plant 100, they certainly can.
I would like to see
And
in
to
the
ramp it up
plan
over
that
time.
it's our goal to plant 100% native. The city plant 100 is a goal. I would like to see that, and I'll sit down and talk with you about it if you'd like. Indeed. So moving on, page 70 of 125 under Objective 62 includes the launching of a pilot residential tree assistance program distributing a minimum of 50 trees and include guidance on planting, species selection, and follow-up care. My question is, would you please provide additional detail on the residential tree assistance program and the role of volunteers in this program? Because it says that the tree team will help, but I don't really know what we're agreeing to help on.
Well, you don't have to help at all if you don't want.
Oh, I do want to help. But,
Every city structures those a little differently. So,
Okay.
you guys have a source of native trees, so maybe you contribute 10 or 20 of those 50. Perhaps you're on hand just helping to distribute trees with the city if they're going to do like a bulk pickup. Perhaps you're on call if somebody needs advice. If their tree's not doing well, somebody from the tree team can come out and provide some advice. So there's tons of ways you can assist with that depending on what you're willing and able to do.
And there was you said that people will be able to call in for an issue about trees, and I wondered if that was on their own property or on a city-owned property. Or
Every city's rules are a little different with that one. In general, most cities provide overall education of, hey, what could be wrong? But most city arborists do not go and inspect private property.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so the
not
question
typical.
they're posing should be in regard to city-owned trees.
I would take questions. If somebody called and said, my crepe myrtle looks really bad, I'd be like, okay, well, it probably has aphids or bark scale. You should call an arborist, but that's my guess, right? So I would try to help them without setting foot on the property.
Give it some fertilizer. Crepe myrtles love fertilizer.
Not
Okay.
big scale.
By the year 3 to 5, that's when the city will actually begun conducting annual tree plantings along streets and in parks, a priority strongly supported by the community. This, while I may sound critical or even argumentative, you don't know me.
No,
That's
you're fine.
tame for me. But we are in support of this. I, as a tree team member, founder, I've asked my group, we're in support. We're just worried about the devil in the details. We've had been burned a little bit, and now we're concerned. But by year 3 to 5, the city should be conducting annual tree plantings along streets and in parks. Efforts will focus on shading low canopy neighborhoods. Bill, they have specific areas that they plan on planting, low canopy areas, and low equity, and setting annual targets to increase overall canopy coverage from 44% to 50% in 10 years. So that's a good goal, challenging, while making progress toward the 300 benchmark. I think you guys know what that is, but it's you can see a tree from 3 trees from your house. You can walk to a park in short order, and 30% canopy in your neighborhood. The tree team remains committed and eager to work with the city to expand the urban tree canopy through ongoing planting events. We have proposed to the mayor and the manager an urban forest opening ceremony at Sandpoint Park sometime in the rainy season with a tree planting event along Neptune's Trail. I have dubbed that trail Neptune's Trail. It leads to Neptune, and I think that's what we should call that trail, and throughout the park. Additionally, the city may wish to have a tree giveaway to attendees, and the mayor, the manager, Lily, and Jolynn have all said, yeah, that sounds great. So hopefully they'll allow us to do that and have a great big event, maybe the last Saturday of June, if this all goes through. So I want to say thank you. And thank you for putting up with my argumentative, bold type of personality.
No, this is why we're here.
This urban forest plan is far better than we could have hoped for. We
Thank you.
all feel that. Well, like I said, we're just worried about the devil in the details. So let's get busy and plant trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else like to stand up and speak on the urban forest management plan? Tom? Please.
You know, it occurred to me, Tom Perez, Titusville. Recently, I was speaking with someone, a friend of mine, and they mentioned that their insurance company required them to cut down some trees. What did she do? The unexpected. She dropped her insurance. And it occurred to me, just to expand on a program such as this, to include a private side to it, so that when people are in a situation that, you know, they need to cut down a tree, if the city were to promote a program that replaced that tree, okay, I think that would go a long way for several reasons. It might give us a sort of the input side of what's happening to our trees on the private side. You know, how many are getting cut down? I see things getting cut down all the time, and I say, why? You know, and this might give us sort of a little reaching in to try to find out, some of the mechanics of that. If we're offering something, and we might be able to partner with, insurance companies and whatnot to be able to fund some of that. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, Tom. Years ago, when I was still active with the tree farm, we used to order trees, little saplings and whatnot, and then raise them, grow them, and then sell them. Do you think the folks in the tree farm would be interested in working with the city to, say, for example, like Indian Atlantic did with their swales? They came up with several different designs with different plants, deep-rooted plants to draw water. And they would provide different design options to the people when they were going to put in the swale. We could do something similar with
Absolutely.
the trees, and we could figure out which trees are hardy,
Right.
will handle hurricane, will handle frost, native to Brevard, and that we want as shade trees in our canopy. And then we can come up with a short list for the city of how we recommend these trees, and then work with the tree farm in a
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Well, I think the tree farm has been open to having a relationship, and understanding with the city of how we could help,
Brad,
providing trees, I'm sorry.
I was just, Brad, what's the city side of this? Would we be able to do something like this to implement this urban forest management plan? Work with our local nonprofits to help provide us with the plants and the native plants that we would need to build this forest?
Are you referring to the Landscape Trust Fund?
No,
Or just in general?
no. I'm talking about utilizing the Titusville Garden Club tree farm. They grow and raise plants, usually just as hobbyists for themselves and to keep the farm going. But they can also work with the city through an MOA or an MOU. They can order the seedlings from the tree farm where they're sprouted, and we can raise them for the city, and then the city can buy them at a reduced fee or some predetermined fee, so that we have a stock of trees to be able to provide the city with, to implement this urban forest plan. Is that something that staff would be willing to work with, so that we could put the two of you guys together? And
I mean, it's possible, yeah. I mean, I don't see anything that would prevent that other than just the specifics about it and whatever council's direction is. Ultimately, this has to go before city council.
Sure.
So.
Well, and cities do that that is not a off the wall wild idea. It does happen, partnerships with local growers and nurseries where you get reduced, in this case working with nonprofits even better, where you get good locally grown trees at a really reduced rate.
Right.
Would be an amazing thing. And just start small. It doesn't have to be 100 trees, right?
Exactly.
Gee, I was hoping for 100.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. All right. Anybody else? Earl, anyone? No?
Can I just interject one idea?
One more idea,
One
sure.
idea. Okay. I have worked with the tree garden farm and brought seedlings that I got from the Audubon Society that I plant at the parks and brought them to the garden club and asked them to grow them for me for a few months, And then I planted them, but they were bigger than when I got them originally, because they have been growing, Now I just keep them at home and grow them, But I do think that's a marvelous idea. There is so much space, and the garden club is leasing that space from the city, is how I understand it. And they have the volunteers to do it, and I'm more than willing to help with that. So that's a great plan, but we got to figure out how to get it in this urban forest plan, not just talk about it. So I would like the consultant to try to make a note about that and see if she cannot put that into the urban forest plan, because it talks over and over again with the city partnering with the nonprofits. We don't just want to be helping a teeny bit. We want to have our feet on the ground and digging holes. That's what we've been doing now for years, and we want to pursue it more thoroughly while partnering with the city. Thank you very much.
And with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Who'd like to start this off? Ann, would you care to start us off?
Okay, let's see. I see this UFMP as a comprehensive framework with sections to be fleshed out and implemented as allowed and items to be tailored to Titusville's needs and conditions.
Succinct. Ma'am?
I'm thrilled with the plan. Thank you so much. We, like Mary said, 2019, we've been waiting since 2019 to have an urban forestry plan. So thank you so much, Liz. My, the thing that jumped out at me and caused me the greatest heartburn as I was going through the plan was the 10% species thing. We have a very unique topography here in Titusville. So unlike the flatlands of Kansas where it's all flat and you'd be able to have a different kind. We have sand hills, ancient beach dunes that sand pines and slash pines and different, myrtle trees will grow on. And then we have wetlands that other kinds of trees grow on. So what I think we should do is look at we do have a lot of remnant intact forest areas that are left in the town, and we need to be mimicking what's been here, and we know it grows and we know it will survive, and we have tons of wildlife in the city, and so we know it supports wildlife. And that's what I would like to see. I mean, if you can take out this whole 10% recommendation that's causing so much heartburn and replace it with some verbiage about mimicking the existing remnant forest sections that are still left in town and expanding on them, that would be one of the things that would make me very happy. It's a, like Bill said, it's a big plan. It's got a lot to digest, and it's kind of overwhelming when you look at it. And Kay didn't have time to talk about it, but I've seen some recommendations on some things that could maybe eliminate about 20 pages out of the plan without doing anything to reduce the plan. So if you can make that happen, that would be really good. At least consider the suggestions that Kay has made. And like Kay said, we worked really, really hard for a long time, this committee, to get the 72% native species into the city's landscape technical manual. So I see no reason to drop that to 50%. So if you can change that, and match what's in our landscape manual.
Do we think we could do a compromise and say, I know we love our native species, but 75% where both sides aren't happy?
Yeah.
Would that cause less heartburn, do we think, doing the 75? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know we want 100, but
I know, yeah.
and the point is to be incremental about these things, right?
Well, if we wanted to plant some fruit trees, because a lot of citizens have asked if we could plant some fruit trees in our plantings. Well, those fruit trees are not native, and so.
Right.
But I think, I'd be thrilled with 75%.
Okay.
Anything above 50%, I'd be happy with. I'm going to stop for now and see what the rest of the committee says.
Okay. Anybody else? Jason?
Yeah. So my first question I think is kind of procedural. So we're seeing the draft tonight. Is there any opportunity outside of tonight for more in the public to comment on the draft? Either in person or electronically or anything else?
I believe it's going to be on the website go ahead, Lily, I think.
Yeah, I can put it on the website. I think the intent was also to capture that in this display. I wonder, maybe we can do like what the CRA is doing downstairs. But yeah, I can put it on the website. It's just in its draft form now, so it's not like a done.
I
There's
just feel like
missing pieces
even,
to it.
yeah, I just feel like even with Kay specifically, you know, limiting her to 5 minutes instead of having that open conversation, I feel like there's, I mean, obviously there's more to say. So I was just curious if there's going to be that opportunity for others to give their opinions.
Are you asking a different format from what we have tonight?
Kind of, yeah, like more of like a,
There'll be another presentation before you at your regular meeting on May
Right.
13th. That's what we're shooting for. And
Yeah.
then final presentation to council. So
Okay.
we do not have in the scope of work an additional meeting that's a public forum in the sense that you're thinking of. So if you do want to provide the public more time to speak, you can certainly do that. You
Yeah.
don't have to limit them to a certain number of minutes.
sure, okay, thank you. Laura Lee already hit some of this, but the 50% native, I agree with that, like 100%. Like we should be aiming as high as we can on that. And the same with the 10, 20, 30. I guess my other big question is, does this plan eliminate and replace the existing tree ordinance?
No.
Well, that's, I guess where I'm going with that is Mary talked a lot about the conflicts with the tree ordinance and that. So I guess where is that line? Because we talk about revisiting the $75 and $100 fee in lieu amounts. Like how does this interact, I guess, with the tree ordinance?
So and the city staff may know this even better than I do, but so generally we put a piece of like policy type recommendations that theoretically aren't code updates and shouldn't require as lengthy and technical of an approval process. Code updates are just that. So I myself have been through the process as a city arborist before, so I can understand. And what I'm getting from what Mary had said is we have this ordinance, it's fragile, we don't want to mess it up. And to an extent, that is something that you should be aware of. When I first started as a city arborist, there was a definition in our code that was wrong. It had DBH as caliper, like they were reversed. And it affected everything I did every day. Very simple technical fix. So I was able to get the change on the docket, and I went to our commissioners and I'm like, just need to make this simple swap in the code. Shouldn't be a problem. This is my first year as city arborist, keep in mind. So it's very hopeful. And it turned into like a multi-month thing because we had people getting up and commenting about other parts of the code they didn't like, and this shouldn't be in there. And I'm like, we've had this code since 2004. We're not debating this. I'm trying to make it just a teeny bit more technically correct. So that is something to think about when you bring these code amendment packages, and working with a city solicitor and the timing of which they go before council to change 75 to 300 or 500. That is something you have to be aware of for sure. And I always learned when I was a city arborist is that certain councils and certain time frames are maybe better than others. And maybe if this is called for in year 2, perhaps year 2 is not the right time. Perhaps you need more time. Perhaps it's year 3 and we have to amend that time frame. So these would be amendments, updates, extras, rather than throwing out what is there. And ultimately, if the city decides none of them make sense for them at all, that's okay. These are based on a review of your code versus hundreds of other codes that we've read. What is really good about it? What is missing? What could be improved? And right now, those fees, and I dealt with the same thing when I took over as city arborist, our fees were exactly the same in my hometown, where the cost to plant a tree is $600 and our fees were, I think, $150. And the fee was so low, it was creating an incentive to pay the fee instead of planting the trees. And the whole reason we had this, I don't want the money. I wanted you to plant your trees. I wanted you to preserve trees. Like, I'd rather have nothing in the mitigation fund. I'd rather you put the tree back on your property. And so, yeah, those things have to be balanced, acknowledging you have gaps. You have city staff that says these fees are too low. This is what's happening. But that perhaps the existing ordinance is tenuous, and upsetting that balance could be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Another one, I guess this doesn't necessarily go to you, it's just a thought that I had talking about the employee or whoever that's gonna be the initial coordinator for this. And this just kind of comes from my own time looking at conservation jobs, especially part-time stuff. I see a lot of job advertisements for part-time and temporary. So I just wonder if that might be a way to get it started, a part-time temporary position, just to meet that first criteria. Just
Yep,
a
and it's
thought.
temporary, and sometimes it rolls on in the budget, and sometimes it doesn't, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
it's a very valid way.
All right, I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay? Hector?
Hi. Yeah, we're not Minnesota, so there is a difference.
A little bit of a temperature difference,
but-
maybe.
So let me start where you left off, with the ordinance and
Okay.
Mary's comments. We always talk about a permanent person or a person. Perhaps we should work on not a non-permanent person. It could be a volunteer that works with the city at the beginning of this endeavor that we're trying to get on and performs the duty. The whole thing is about the duty of what the person is doing. The knowledge may be in the community and it may be available from people that may help the community. And it's not a lifelong achievement award, okay? But for the beginning of the project, so we can get this off without fighting the FTE issue. I think that we might be in a position where we can make that if the FTE cannot come to be. Perhaps ask the community if they would volunteer. If they have a volunteer that can raise their hand and say, you know what, I'll do this for 6 months. I'll do this for a year. Okay, the knowledge is there. And I think that may be an appropriate way of getting this off so we can get this off. Otherwise, we're gonna fight about an FTE. Okay, and what, we don't wanna lose this because of an FTE. Okay? And I'm looking at Tom, I'm looking at Kay, I'm looking at others that do have the knowledge. I don't, I'm an engineer. Okay,
That's its own special
I will
knowledge.
plant the tree, I'll measure and, and do that and have no idea. But these folks do have the knowledge and they are among their peers that do have the knowledge, and one of them may raise their hand and say, yes, I'll work with the city as, give me a title.
Yeah,
And go do it and have, legal and staff and everybody involved so that this person is covered for all the things that needs to be covered but we can get this off with a volunteer. We don't need a person from the beginning that is gonna cause a lot of friction and not get this off. So to me, getting this going is my number one priority. And I will propose that we look into a volunteer that perhaps can help us get this off.
Well, and that would be when the city staff does the staffing plan, and maybe that is a huge component of it. My first year as city arborist, I had a full-time volunteer who helped me every day in the field doing work, pruning trees, all that. I mean, he was invaluable. I wouldn't have made it without him. So yes, I can certainly see the value in that. I think it's important that you still have an employee as a touch point, though, somebody that's truly in charge on the day-to-day basis, because that is a ton to ask of a volunteer. So.
The responsibilities, I think, can be worked out, okay? But that may be a way. And then my second point is what Jason was talking about. If we have any conflict with what we have on the books versus what we have in this plan, I think that we should take a little time to see how we can fix that so that we don't. Okay? Because that ordinance has been around since 2021. And so this book was just born and came about. So we should not have a conflict. We should try to work with the ordinance and make sure with staff
Okay, yeah,
that we don't cause a problem because staff's gonna have the knowledge, Mary's gonna have the knowledge and others that go, wait a minute, guys, you know, if we, all we need to do is amend this or that.
And keep in mind, these are like I said, recommendations based off of strengths, weaknesses, and gaps.
I understand.
So, yeah, you don't have to do any of them, all of them. It's certainly not a one size fits all.
I understand, but coming from a world of exact everything and very little room for guessing, okay?
That's the engineer, right?
Spock here.
I tend to try to bring the groups together at the beginning so we together can go to council and say, oh, by the way, that ordinance and this book are not fighting and it's not gonna cause problems. And that, we can do that on the side, I think, while everything else marches on. I'm not stopping anything.
Yep.
So those are my 2 points, Brett, that I would like to. And of course, and like when we had the meeting, we need to be bold. And yes, we need to ask for the sky, absolutely.
But we don't want you set you up to fail either. So we want to make sure things in here, not just that we agree with them, but they are, like I think Kay said, like, that's a great goal. It's ambitious, but it's still possible, right? We don't want you to fail at every single thing, so it's just
No,
like, you know.
And we should identify obstacles in the beginning, not during or after,
Yep.
and try to fix those when we go together to council and say, listen, we had this, but we're gonna fix it. We had the ordinance, we're gonna fix it. We had the FTE, this is a possible solution, okay?
Yep.
And that way, we integrate.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a little bit of time to do that. Brad, you were gonna say? You have-
I acknowledge what you're saying.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Please. Oh, Member Thompson, you had to late?
John hadn't spoken yet, so
Right.
go
I was-
for it, John.
Thank you. Well, I first want to say thank you for the plan. I think it's excellent, and there's a lot of information in there, and there's a lot to absorb. But I also, was brought to my attention that there are a lot of incredible resources that the city already has to use, and especially with this fund and the mitigation fees, and it's my understanding that the city already has 2 arborists and staff, and I'm sure they're dedicated to a lot of work, but I'm surprised that we don't have the arborists or other city staff having this conversation with us, because this is an urban forest management plan. And so the onus, and I agree with you, Hector, I believe, we have the support from the community. Everybody has spent a lot of time and effort so far to get to this point, many years. But the onus is on the city. And I think to get a coordinator is a small ask, considering the amount of money that we've invested so far into this project. So however way we do it, it's a small ask. We already have 2 arborists, and maybe we can look at some different ideas. The city can, look at internally at their staff and see who's willing to step up and say, hey, maybe I can, take on this responsibility or this section of the city, or, residential versus commercial, or whatever that is. But it's a small ask. We worked way too hard to get to this point to be slowed down just by a coordinator position. That's my opinion.
Jonathan?
I would probably just echo that more or less. I think it is important that we have someone who can really bring everything together, such as a coordinator, and especially with having different private and public partnerships. I really love that. I think having as much participation from the community is important. I believe they also value all that a lot as well. And a lot of times they have the expertise in those specific areas that helps out a whole lot. And we definitely need that.
Go ahead.
So as a survivor of the tree wars that went on for years to get the tree canopy protection ordinance. Actually, we got a unanimous vote out of the city council, even though there were a lot of differences at the time. We cannot touch that. And you know, we might be able to maybe start looking at, I agree, we're not charging enough money in the mitigation fund, but right now, we need to leave the original tree canopy protection ordinance in place. We worked really, really hard to devise a new ordinance to try to get some canopy protection for multifamily. That's on hold because of Senate Bill 180. And also the critical root zone. We spent a lot of time talking about, because just like you had that glitch when you stepped in as a arborist, our critical root zone language is wrong. And so we're trying to correct that. But again, Senate Bill 180, put the brakes on it. But now I'm going to touch the third rail. We have $800,000 in a landscape trust fund, and almost none money out of that landscape trust fund has been used to actually plant trees in town, even though the reason that the money is there is because developers have killed trees. And I think that it's time that we put our foot down and say, we've funded enough failed flower projects out by I-95 and in the medians in US 1 and all the other places. We can't name one single landscape project that we spent money out of the landscape trust fund on that is still alive right now. So I think that even if we can't get, you know, the council to turn all of the landscape trust fund over to planting trees, we are entitled to half of it, you know, because, and we have never gotten our half of the trust fund. We were told that let's finish these gateway projects first, and we'll pay for the gateway projects first, and then you guys can start planting trees. Well, that's done. It's over with. It's done. And I think
They've
the stuff
frozen
is,
and they've died.
they're gone. We have a couple of palm trees that got planted that were included in those projects.
They'll get
The
mowed
palm
down.
trees are still there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for money from the Landscape Trust Fund to pay for the full-time equivalent employee to be the arborist. We can't depend on volunteers to take the leadership role that needs to happen to make this project a reality. And we need somebody to lead the parade. We have a lot of parade. We have the drum majorettes and the floats and everything and the volunteers, but we need a leader for the parade, and that has to be an employee of the city. It can't be a volunteer, and I don't think it's unreasonable. I know that the Landscape Trust Fund is not going to be there forever, because eventually we're going to, you know, have developed everything we can develop in the city. There's not a whole lot left that can be developed. And that fund will dry up eventually, but I don't think it's unreasonable to ask to use some of the money from the Landscape Trust Fund to pay for the arborist, hire somebody that can work with the volunteers and work with work with Sandra Reller and her department, and let's get this thing rolling. But that's my recommendation, is that this committee, we need to put our foot down and say, this is what we want, this is what we need. This plan is never going to get off the ground if we're trying to do it with all volunteers. And you can't legally, it has to be a paid city person that is going to be the leader and try to get this plan off the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Lee. I have a couple of notes that I jotted down. First of all, I think Mary's right off the bat was that we're going to need our own urban forest ordinance. the tree preservation ordinance is really designed for native natural lands that are being usurped, not brownfields or redevelopment or anything like that. This plan covers everything else. It covers the city, it covers the public areas, it covers, in my opinion, it should cover right-of-ways. I mean, where we develop a cooperative relationship with the citizens, it'll expand even more. So I think this is going to need to become its own ordinance. That way we don't touch the third rail, just leave that as it is.
No, the third rail is the landscape trust fund.
That, well, yeah, we got too many third rails. I also agree with Mary about not using the canopy area credit and the fee and lieu rate. I think we can find better ways to meter that. I also agreed with the 50% wildlife and native species. That certainly needs to go higher. We've been higher, we are higher, and we want to maintain that. I agree with the 10, 20, 30 percentage of what we talked about. I agree with what you said, Laura Lee. I think we should match what's in our current native habitat areas. We are diverse. I think if I remember right, we've got something like 16 different soil types and 27 different habitat types in our city. And the combination of those things are what make us so unique. So we might have pine flatwoods next to pond pines, on the other side of the ridge. And it's just so they're all over the place. And we need to be cognizant of that as we build. I was going to suggest you had here for Goal 1, establish the program. Objective 1.2B, develop a role description for the urban forestry coordinator. If you look at the Tree City urban forestry job description, which is offered to us by Tree City USA, you've got a very, very good place to start. I wanted to bring that point out. Let's see, I think that was all I had there. I agree, Beth Ann, it's a comprehensive framework. What I think I told Lily was it was as comprehensive as the systems engineering plan I wrote for when I designed the emergency operations centers for the country. It's thorough. You've got your goals, you've got your tasks, you've got metrics on how you're going to meter those tasks, which is exactly what you want to have every step of the way. Because if you can't measure it, you can't understand it, and if you don't understand it, you can't control it. So this plan may look like it's in depth, and it is, and it's got breadth as well. You don't get away with 125 pages of nothing, right? There's a lot here. It's ambitious. It's a 20-year shot into the future, and I think every vision that we shoot for should be so ambitious. How we get there, that's the challenge. But I don't think we should be cutting ourselves off at the knees and saying we have to go to volunteers to start with. I think we need to step up and stand up. We had, 92% of the people that were certified said they were interested in more trees in our city, and I think we need to give them to them.
People wanted more trees. They
want more trees.
That was a universal thing, yes.
Exactly. So we need to find a way to make that happen. And 5.25 FTE, that's 5.25 people, not just one. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of work. Well, maintaining a forest is a lot of work. I mean, it takes people, and it takes time, and it takes money, and it takes commitment. I hope our city manager has that, and I hope our city council has that, because I think this is a good plan to start with. A few little tweaks here and there as we go, but I think it's something to get going with. And the sooner we get going, the sooner we get done.
Well, and let's make it clear about the 5.25. That may not be right for Titusville. 3 may be correct for you guys. 1 would be a victory, right?
Absolutely.
So working, and I believe I actually put the terminology as working towards that benchmark.
Right.
I have clients that have below the standards that get more done than the benchmark because they just have great staff.
Right.
So very possible. You don't want to be on the other side of that where you have 7 FTEs and have a below average
and 19
program.
Supervisors, yes, I get that. All right, so that was all the comments that I had. Anybody, anything else?
I wanted to talk about the public engagement. I think if we put the draft on our website and just invite people to comment on it, that won't cost anything, and we'll get the public engaged and get their opinions and their ideas on the draft plan, because they haven't seen it yet. We're the only ones that have seen it, us and the city staff.
Right.
And so, yes, absolutely. I think that we can send an email out to the 245 people that participated in the first survey and say, hey, the draft plan is here, it's on the website, take a look at it, and send your comments in.
That's a great
Well,
idea.
I will say, if you guys really want this plan to succeed, it can't just be the dozen people we have in this room.
Right.
So you can initially fund a part-time urban forester through the Landscape Trust Fund. That's a wonderful idea. I started kind of in a similar capacity for my city because I had a very brilliant city manager who knew how to deal with that type of stuff. Ultimately, if you want to fund positions, fund a program, you have to have public support, and it can't just be us sitting in here talking about how important trees are. Everybody else has to understand it, and the city kind of has to essentially put their money where their mouth is. Like, you have to be the leader. You have this really in-depth ordinance related to trees and development, and then nothing about your own trees, right?
Right.
So it just doesn't, to me, if I was, that just wouldn't sit right, So yeah, you're on target with that. You need to reach out.
I just want to make a comment as far as the proposal and the messaging to the community. I didn't see much in there as, and to your point, to get more input and feedback from the community. With the volunteers that we've already, or the survey that you already took, take that same information and work through the utilities department and get that kind of messaging through the utilities, where there's more participants from the community and the residents who could understand more about what energy efficiency as a result of more trees in the community would be, and try and get that kind of education and outreach through utilities is one example.
Good idea. Yeah, we have sometimes in a newsletter, you just put a plug for trees, inserting flyers with bills. People love reading their bills. They open them, though, at least. So yeah, there's all kinds of tricks I'm sure the city staff already knows. I will say you guys probably had more robust public engagement than is typical in a process. So you should feel pretty proud about that you really did go the extra length, in my opinion. And that all started with the proposal put together for the grant and the city staff that developed that. So there's definitely a lot of effort that went into that, I can tell you.
Do we need to make a motion or a vote or anything at this point, or we just the comments were all we needed?
Just your comments,
Okay.
however you want to handle those comments, collectively as a resolution or as a motion, or just individually.
Well, are you satisfied with what you've learned so far from us?
Yeah, I think we have some great feedback to take back, and already made a couple of upping the 50 to 75 and, some other notes that we can address more in depth. So yeah, I think it's been very helpful. Do you guys think it's been helpful, that we feel like we kind of touched on everything?
Yeah.
Okay. No one last heartburn item or anything from anybody?
Uh-oh. All right, Kay, come on up.
Let's get it all out there.
That's what we're here for.
Okay, Jason Miller asked some questions about the changes in the policies and the land development regulations. And there's a whole section in this, I think it's chapter 7, where it goes through that. I think it would behoove all of you to really study that before the next meeting, because I think or maybe Liz could have a meeting with Mary and I or something, because unless you've already agreed, the concerns about the tree ordinance are important. And the tree ordinance is already adopted, but it could definitely go awry if we tried to mess with it too much. There are some things that we have already, the TEC has already tried to address. The TEC actually made a recommendation to council that the Landscape Trust Fund be utilized solely for the urban forest management plan and a forester, but I don't even know if that was presented to council or if they just ignored it. But I remember Michael Browning sitting right where Jason Miller was there, and they made a motion about it and approved it. So I don't know how more we can get council to consider using the Landscape Trust Fund for the Urban Forest Management Plan. But they do have a page all about that on page 116, and it goes through, she thinks it'd be a good idea if you codify the eligible expenditure categories. And she has a list of what you could say that the trust fund could be utilized for specifically. And one is urban forest program staffing, equipment, administration. The TEC could say, we want this resolution. We could recommend that to council next week following this. So I don't know how you're going to deal with all the different parts that TEC has already addressed. We've already addressed the multifamily. We've addressed the several things that you went through in the policy and ordinance chapter in chapter 7. And council just really wasn't willing to do that. And so I'm a little concerned about that.
I can tell you what's interesting is when I was a city arborist, I felt like I was saying the same thing over and over to my council, like year after year. And then we have a consultant come in and it like kind of got on my nerves a little because they said kind of the same things I already knew. We're on the same page on 95% of the stuff, right? And I remember my counsel being like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Why haven't we thought of that? And I'm like, I've been saying it for 3 years.
Right.
So sometimes having another professional person saying, hey, this isn't just what this group thinks. This is an effort like other cities across the United States. This is what they're doing. It's a professional recommendation. It's not just us saying this.
Oh, very good. There is a few mention every once in a while in here about a street tree planting program, but I don't see enough emphasis on that. I think that is a really important factor of this urban forest master plan that could be highlighted. We've been planting trees in parks. Volunteers can do that, but it's really hard for volunteers to initiate a street tree planting program and be digging holes where there's all these cables and stuff.
And they
You
usually have to be a little bigger too because you have more Street trees are the #1 desired place for trees, but also the hardest place to plant, keep trees alive, and the most expensive place.
Right, and so it takes investigation whether you can plant a tree there or not, or how many cables are there. They keep putting more and more cables underground. And I know there's ways to determine that, but it's not something volunteers could do. So I do ask that you've acknowledged that street trees provide the most benefits. I totally agree. They shade the sidewalk, they shade the street, reducing the heat index, and they shade that person's yard as well. Get them out of the house because their yard is shaded now. And the resident, it's against the law for the resident to cut that tree down if it's part of the city's beautification project, and we can get code enforcement to enforce that. But that's why street trees are very important. And so I just wish you would kind of emphasize that a little bit more.
Can look to see if there's any way we can hold that.
Thank you very much for giving me that extra time.
You're welcome, Kay. All right, you got Laura Lee?
So, there is a section, and Kay just mentioned it, and it is on page 99 in the plan, or 116 if you're looking at the black numbers in the TEC packet. And I don't see why we couldn't, right now, make a motion and recommend to the city council that this page right here be implemented or substituted for our existing language, ordinance. I think we should work on the Landscape Trust Fund ordinance again, take another crack at it.
All right.
And do exactly what's on this page right here. Rename the fund.
The updates, all of the updates?
Yeah, rename the fund. Liz suggested the Urban Forest Trust Fund or the Urban Canopy Trust Fund instead of the Public Landscape Trust Fund. And, well, the landscape got added when the city basically hijacked it and stole the money to
Tree mitigation fund.
Yeah.
What it was originally.
Right. So that's when the landscape got added.
Come on up, Bill. Bill understands the history of this because I know he's looked at this for many years.
When I was in city council and I was asking, why is the city taking the money out of the trust fund to do a gateway project? I was told that it's for landscaping. I said, it's not a landscaping fund. It was originally written by Tony Kramalis, gave me the details. I have the paperwork that said tree mitigation fund. They told me at that time, you only need 3 city council members to vote to change the fund, to put it wherever you want, and the citizens have no say in what they do. That's why I'm mad, because I was here and the lawyer stood up and told me that that is the legality, that you only need 3 city council members to say this is a trust fund and no longer a tree mitigation. That's why we've got to work on that. The other thing that I dislike is the Tree City USA, that we claim we're a tree city. We do not use that money for planting trees. I've been told by the city that it is being used for road work. That's $100,000 a year that's not being planted in order to be a true Tree City USA. Another thing that's bad is in 2013, there was a really great urban tree program set up. I don't know how many pages there were. There was a computer program. There was real details in it, and only 17 pages can be found because nobody keeps records, nobody keeps documents. We need to make sure that this document that this lady's written is kept and not thrown out like the last one. And we also need to have documentation as to how much money is collected, how much money is spent, and how much is in the budget year after year. Because since it was around 2013, I started asking those questions. And I've got a document I can send to you that I got a few answers, and it's miserable. We need record keeping.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Well, and I will say, if you guys, towards the end of the plan, we see the appendix, we have an in one of the appendixes, an example report. I can't remember if exactly what he was mentioning is in there, but that report's made to be tailored. So if it's imperative to you guys that you put the trust fund, revenues collected, revenues spent, and total, that could easily be added or taken away from that. And also, I did want to mention one other thing, using the trust fund to fund a position. You have to make sure you have a really good plan in place on how that's going to transfer. Listen, $700,000 buys you a lot of time for somebody, but I would not want to be hired. I've been in this position when I worked for the city of New York. I was paid for by grants. All of us were, honestly, which is crazy if you think about it. And we'd have people go off for a month, and for a month, no work would be happening. And so I don't want you guys to run into that. So making sure, if that's part of that staffing and budgeting portion, that there's a transition plan there. Maybe 50% is paid out of that in year 1, 25 year 2, so that it needs to be funded. The city needs to commit to that position, and it can't rely on grants or developer contributions at the end of the day. In the beginning, I think that's okay. You got to do what you got to do. But having that transition plan, I think, is important.
Yeah, you got to bootstrap yourself up to start. You can't go from 0 to nothing instantaneously.
Yeah, so don't let perfect get in the way of good, but have that knowledge.
That's right.
So the city's budget process is going to start here real soon, right?
Yes?
So
Do I hear a
people
motion
really
coming?
want trees, they should be coming to the city council meeting and getting up in petitions and requests and requesting that the city put a line item in the budget for the urban tree forest.
Is that a motion or something similar to?
Well,
What would you like us to say?
we're an advisory body. We
Right.
could advise the city council that we would like to see
Absolutely.
some money be put into the city's budget. And it needs to be a regular line item added to the city's budget to support the urban tree forest.
I thought you were going to propose we send them Appendix J to start with.
we don't have to hit them that hard, but, you know, I think it's reasonable for
Yeah.
the TEC to, and maybe we need to suggest a number, you know, 100,000 or something like that. Just enough to, we need enough money to pay the urban tree forester position. So maybe, you know,
At least one FTE.
I can give
least-
you guys
yeah.
a little logic with that. So how I budgeted my mitigation fund was whatever we collected the previous, I think it actually had to go back 2 years, but I just took what we had brought in and that's what went into that tree planting fund. So if we had a year where we had a lot of fines and fees, it was higher. Some years were lower. You just can't rely on that wholeheartedly. It has to be a supplemental thing. But that's the way I did it. So if you've been in existence for 7 years and you have 700,000, budgeting 100,000 would seem reasonable and logical.
but would that be 100,000 that would come out of the tree mitigation fund, or would that be out of the general fund? I think it needs to come from the general fund.
I think to really get dedication and commitment from your council, you'll need a line item in the general fund. But I think for the tree mitigation, if you want to start putting that in your budget as a line item, like if it was tree planting, pruning, et cetera, just dividing it by how many years and how much money you have in there is a good starting place and pretty defensible if I were on a council.
Hey, Mike, I had a question.
Jason.
Bill mentioned something a second ago about the Tree City USA that we get like $100,000 a year. Is that,
No, the Tree City USA
understand.
requires that their members spend $2 per capita. So,
okay.
so we have 50,000
I
people,
see.
so that's $100,000.
okay, thank you.
Which we're not spending
is-
as a line item.
That is not hard for municipalities. The one that trips most people up is actually the annual celebration. So the $2 is almost always met.
They're spending the $2. I'm justifying it by saying that they trimmed X amount of trees and that they
Right.
cut down 5 trees that were diseased. They justify it, but part of it is supposed to be spent planting trees, and that's Bill's point, is that
None of
we're,
that's
we're not spending, the city is not spending money planting trees.
And
They're
the
just-
the
they're
metrics
just-
aren't there either
Yeah.
for what they're actually doing and how that's being applied to tree services in our city. So we really do need the plan, and I hope this goes forward.
Can I extend something on what you just said? In regards to the Tree City USA funds, $2 per capita, and that they don't use it to plant very many trees. So I brought that to the attention of Peggy Basaka immediately after the tree ordinance was passed in 2021. I said, they're not using that $2 per capita to plant trees. Here's the list, and it shows this year, they planted none or 8 or whatever. And she says, go to TEC and tell them to tell Public Works to use more of that $2 per capita to plant trees. And I did come to you, and I said that.
And we did.
And
We
you
told
did,
them that.
but they didn't do it.
Right.
So, you know, like you said to begin with, we can't force them to do
But also
something.
one of the worst things as a city I always thought was to put a tree in the ground before you had a plan. With no one to take care of it, no one to prune it, no
Yeah.
money to fund any of that. It's like throwing those tax dollars away. Tree planting is absolutely crucial, but tree planting with no follow-up or plan is
Okay, but we've been
worse.
at Tree City USA for 25 years. For 25 years, they've been. Anyways, you got my.
Oh,
point.
no, I'm not disagreeing. You need to plant trees. Trust me.
They just
I
don't
literally
have
worked
good
in the city of
auditors.
New York and on the Million Trees campaign. So that was how I got my start. Was literally digging holes. So
Well, I would propose to make a motion to add a line item in the annual budget coming out of the general fund so that we can ensure the longevity of this project and so that we're not encountering, past failures with the different projects that we've done.
Right.
And so I make a motion to add a line item in the annual budget
I'll
coming
second
out of
that.
the general fund.
I'll second that straight out. Any other discussions on this, please?
I don't know that I have a good suggestion, but I'm just kind of asking out loud. Do we leave it vague like that, or should we try to give a target? So in my mind, if we're talking about, and I'm not a great money guy, so this might be unreasonable, but, we're talking about collecting $2 per person. It's roughly $100,000 per year through the Tree City thing. On top of that, we have the mitigation funds. Would $100,000 a year be a reasonable suggestion? I don't know.
I think it's a start. Sneeko?
No, I think 100,000 is a good start, and that would ensure the salary for the coordinator, whether it starts out part-time to full-time, and then overtime, that fund, if it's allocated, then we could, I would start with 100,000.
So I can tell you the average urban forester for a city your size, full-time, would be paid around 90,000. Now, that would have to be adjusted. That's just a benchmark,
Right.
adjusted to Titusville's salaries, cost of living, et cetera. But that would be in a realm for a full-time. So it's not a $40,000 a year, it's not 140,000, so.
Sure, but then we also have other funds coming from the mitigation fund, the Tree USA fund, and the $2 per capita. So we could add more money into that once we get started, but that would be a good start.
I think Lily, when you go to present this to council, page 27 of the report, 44 of our, where we have the tree urban forest details, we start out with how it relates to the sustainability action plan, our comprehensive plan, and the community development plan. These are all supporting documents that support the requests that we're making. So I think that may be beneficial to provide. No other comment? I'll call a vote.
Can I have a few questions about the motion?
Yeah.
So this eventually will go before city council, so I'm assuming your motion is going to go with this plan as it's presented to city council and not separate. That's what we would do. Okay. Then the motion also asks for general funds to be set aside for new personnel, a new full-time employee.
Right.
That's my understanding. Okay. I do want to clarify, we do not receive Tree City USA funds. What that is talking about is using existing funds, general funds, for maintenance to pay for our current staff to do out in maintenance. That's all it is. That's us accounting for that. So the only revenue that we currently receive right now that's tree-related is the impact fee or the tree mitigation fee, rather, that goes into that trust fund.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I just had one clarifying question on the motion. The motion and second were pending when the 100,000 figure was thrown out as a suggestion. Has that been amended into the motion?
The second holds. The first, is that acceptable?
Yes, I would say to include the $100,000 as the line item into the general fund.
Okay, the second holds too. All right.
Is there a chance that adding the 100,000 is going to be a deal breaker for the council and then it'll kill the plan moving forward? Should we keep them separate? I don't want to add anything to the urban forest management plan that's going to sink the ship. And that could do it. That could be the torpedo. I think that the motion to add the $100,000 to the city's budget should be separate from a recommendation that we approve this plan. Although we're not approving the plan tonight anyway, but I don't want to tie anything extra to the plan that's gonna be the thing that sinks it.
That was my thinking, was that this would be a separate recommendation, not necessarily tied to the plan, was my thought.
So we can make that recommendation right now, and I think we should. We need to start lining up, our arguments for why we need to have the 100,000 come out of the city budget. We should start on that right away.
I'm happy to rescind that motion and reiterate that we just make a line item in the general budget and ask for another motion later on for the 100,000.
So you're withdrawing your motion, and then I guess the second needs to do the same.
I can do that, but I'm not sure why we're withdrawing the motion.
Well, I do agree that the dollar amount can be a little daunting at first if we're discussing this in the.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
This is going to come back to you potentially, we hope to bring it back to you with some revisions at your next meeting. That'll be another opportunity for you to discuss that. So once, I guess when everyone is brought up to speed and look at this more thoroughly, especially after tonight's meeting, then you may have a better suggestion as what that recommendation might be. And we'll certainly meet with you between now and then as well.
Well, as long as we have another opportunity to present this, then I think maybe we can sit on it now and so I do rescind the motion for now.
Brad, when do the budget hearings start? When are they going to get started talking about this?
So the budget season has already started for fiscal year 27. The city manager is supposed to present a budget to the city council, I believe, late July. I'll have to look at the calendar. So this report probably will not get to city council until June 9th. So it's a month time, and I don't know the city manager. He may be able to squeeze in a line item based on your recommendation. If the council directs him to do that, that's what he'll do. He'll find a way to do it. Otherwise, council may decide to defer this until next year and just ask us to find someone on current staff to help coordinate on a part-time basis, possibly. Again, this is a plan. When it goes before city council, if they accept it, it's a long-term strategy.
Right.
Before you even start it, you have to get the prerequisites. So we have to think about the next year's budget, the following year's budget, to find out what kind of resources we can collect for the coordinator, the inventory, which I believe we do have a grant that was awarded to us. We just need to go through that to see what we can actually accomplish with that. And then even looking at the Landscape Trust Fund to see what we can revise on that. That's a process. That's going to be changes. It's going to take several months before city council as well.
Of course.
So in all reality, it's possible you could probably get a line item into the fiscal 27 budget, but in reality, I think it might not really start until the fiscal 28, mainly because of the timelines. But you are going to you're a recommending body, so make your recommendation to city council either tonight or wait till your next meeting. I anticipate it won't go to them until June 9th anyway, because that's when we'll present this report to them.
The urban forest management plan will go to city council on the 9th.
That's what we plan to do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
But
we
what
have a
we're-
deadline to report back on the
But what we're talking
grant.
about now is outside of that. It's in support of it,
Yeah, no,
but it's not this.
yeah, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just my suggestion.
All right.
So I appreciate you explaining that. The reason I made the motion is to ensure that this project is long-lasting. And so my concern is that there is not a person in place or or later on down the road that they're going to say that the funding is no longer there. That's why I want the line item for longevity. Are there going to be conversations between now and, let's say, June internally about staff and how that might be reshaped for different responsibilities? For example, maybe you're two arborists or the sustainability program or the community development, or excuse me, the public works?
Sure. Our staff internally have been looking at contingencies, depending on what city council's direction may potentially be on June 9th or thereafter with the budget.
Would you be able to give us some options or what those alternatives might look like?
We're looking, it's very preliminary, so we've just been looking at staff, roles and responsibilities, the amount of work they have. Right now, the city manager's policy, in order to because revenues are not coming in we don't anticipate the revenue levels to be the same as the previous years. So the city manager's policy right now is to go through attrition. He's not limiting positions. He says those positions that are being not filled right now, only in order to bring the budget to balance. So that's his policy right now. So requests for new personnel to him, you'll have to consider those. And if this is a priority of city council, he'll take that direction.
Okay, Laura Lee?
So there's always the Landscape Trust Fund, and like, if we were gonna make a motion, we could maybe include that, at least to get it started, the first year, we could use the 100,000 out of the Landscape Trust Fund so that it's not dinging anything else.
That makes sense. Still need a motion.
Well, I think we can talk about this in the next meeting.
All
We
right.
can think about it and talk about it at the next meeting.
Very good.
But that would be my suggestion, is that and it's only gonna take 3 votes, guys. Doesn't have to be unanimous.
That's right.
We just have to convince 3 council members that we deserve. We've been slighted for so many years out of the Landscape Trust Fund. Our community deserves the opportunity to take $100,000 out of the Landscape Trust Fund so that we can hire a person to get this plan rolling.
Yep.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Anybody else?
I just have a quick timeline,
Sure.
a reminder about the public feedback add-in, because this has to come back an edited version by your 15th meeting. So that will be a very short window of only
Yeah.
a couple days and not enough probably to put in the utility bill by that suggestion. So the thought is we could do a little mini sprint, but it might not get the amount of turnout that it had before because we had months to get the response we had in their initial ask. So I just wanted to
Do we have
clarify that.
the email contacts of all the people that responded?
Yeah.
So we could do a quick survey back to those people.
We also
could
don't
we
have the
not?
flash vote ones though, which is
Oh.
where the 300 came from.
I see. Okay. Well,
So I can still put it out there. I'm just letting you know, like, levy the expectations.
Give them a week to respond. Make it very, very clear. Guys,
Yeah.
you have a week to respond.
suspense
That's it.
date and time.
That's it.
Well, and hopefully this will be one of those times when the people that are in this room can really help out and share it on the socials and talk to their friends about it and make sure that as many of us as possible put it out there as much as possible. The various service clubs and everything like that, like make announcements and hopefully give people the opportunity to respond.
Okay. Seeing no other motions or hearing no other comments, I guess we'll move on to old business and wetlands.
Chairman.
No? No?
Chairman, I do have one
Yes, sir.
recommendation. Because the list has these displays up here, we want to
yes.
suggest to you to maybe take a recess to allow
Okay.
the members and members of the public to participate in the engagement that she's displayed here, and then reconvene for the next agenda item.
Okay, we can do just that. We'll take a short recess. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll give it a minute then. I guess we'll bring the meeting back to order. Since old business was wetlands, and we're pretty burned out on wetlands, and it's already too late tonight, so I think we're going to I'd like to have a motion to punt the wetland to the next meeting.
I would move
To
to
table
do
it to
this,
the next.
just that, table wetlands to the next meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. All right. Petitions and requests from the public present. Anybody? Everybody's jumping up for the podium. Okay, so we'll pass on petitions and requests. We move into reports from staff and peoples.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start, and as Brad did allude to, we were awarded a grant to conduct a tree inventory, so that is currently in process. So that's step 1 of 3 of those prerequisites,
We're
which
getting
is
started.
nice.
Good.
Yeah, and it's funded, so that's good. Yeah, I think that was the major highlight, and you all received the 2026 annual report. That is a reflection of all the activities working it towards the Sustainability Action Plan from April of last year to April of this year.
Wow. It's thicker than the previous one. Been some work done there. Beth Ann, you have anything to report?
I do not.
Anybody down on this end?
I got just a real brief one. Just wanted to say that I attended the planning officials training conference today. I'm not sure the exact title, but Laura Lee was there as well. Super, super informative, and I'm going to steal Laura Lee's suggestion. I think that's something that every city council member would benefit from that. Every boards and commission member. I mean, obviously not something you would ever enforce, but like I would really, really push that as a great thing for anybody that's dealing with planning. It really opened my eyes to a lot.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I agree. It was really, really excellent. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys have all ridden across the bridge and see all the new sand that's going in on the north side of the causeway. And when you go over our bridge now and you're heading east and you look and you see all that beach and all that sand on both sides of our causeway, and there's no other causeway in the county that has any kind of beach. They're all lined with rocks. So we are, and the horseshoe crabs loved it. So we didn't have a lot of crabs on the south side this year because we didn't have the right kind of winds. But we certainly had a lot of northeast winds this winter. And we have more crabs on our surveys on the north side of the causeway than we've had in the 6 years that I've been doing the survey. So it was a banner year on the north side. And the reason is because we put their habitat back for them.
Yes.
You know, so I'm so happy with what's going on the causeway.
Thank you.
I got a chance to watch Vinnie Taranto's presentation from India Atlantic to the Sorrel COC, Citizens Oversight Committee. I was just absolutely floored with what they did. India Atlantic is a 1 square mile city. It's flat as a pancake, and they don't really have any place for compensatory storage for stormwater. And they were looking at different ways of trying to deal with it. And the way Vinny put it, he said, which would you rather have, soup out of a plate or soup out of a bowl? And the reason you want it out of a bowl is because there's something to hold it there. And they got to looking at putting in swales in all of their right-of-ways throughout the whole city, private land and public land. Anywhere where there weren't utilities, they went in and designed a set of swales that would go in. And they have several different designs with several different plantings because they figured not only can it capture water, but it can also help water infiltration. And when you get plants that have long, deep tap roots, that's what happens. So smart people found out that their costs for swales were something, God, I think it was like 13 cents a foot was what they came up with a 6 foot wide, 1 foot deep, 1 foot wide at the base swale, just a very shallow, but enough to capture some stormwater. They calculated that if they did half of their roadways, what are available, just half, they would store over 1 million gallons of stormwater just in these little systems. And so I was thinking that maybe it would be really good to have Vinnie come and give that presentation to us, because I think that's something that we need to be thinking about in light of the stormwater to trees that I got you guys copies of from the EPA. Look at that, and then when we see what Vinnie's doing and what they've done in Satellite Beach, that'll give us a way to help move water through our city in a very convenient way, in a way that we haven't tried. And it will help recharge our superficial aquifer way more than what we're doing now. So I'd like to suggest that as a future agenda topic, if that's okay with you guys. And then I'll work with Lily and Vinnie to get that done. So, any other future agenda topics, since we're in the future agenda topic area? No? Okay. Well, that only leaves one thing, adjournment. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We're adjourned.